We're starting to look at a very difficult stage. There's a lot of climbs along the route, with a second category climb at about 40 kilometers to go, and I think that climb will be just a little bit too much for Fabian Cancellara. So what's happening is, because that breakaway got themselves a 14.5-minute lead, they're going to have to see themselves get chased by other riders. It's a great day of racing today, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. It's mostly sunny. There are a few clouds in the sky, and the wind today is actually swung around a fraction to become an easterly wind at 12 miles an hour. So that, on the majority of this course today, Phil, will actually be a crosswind.
Perfect condition today. The riders know as we get into the stage, the hills get right up to them, and this is going to be a very difficult day of racing. You can see also the peloton is racing pretty hard down there today. There's an echelon forming at the front indicating the wind direction. As always, we sort out our riders to put on the heart rate monitors. Grabsch, De Burkhardt, Martinez, Grabsch and Axel Merckx are wearing. We'll see how the Harts cope with the climbs today, because after nearly a week of flat riding, it's often the case that when you get onto these hills, the tempo and the body objects.
This is work at the back here. You can see one of the riders from Barlow World having to drive up to the front. But I tell you one thing, it'll be interesting to watch Axel Merckx's heart rate today, because when Eddie Merckx was racing, he actually had a resting heart rate of 32.
Peloton at 10 minutes 30 seconds. It's been a very fast start to the day, the sort of start we like to see. Sadly, without Rémi Di Gregorio today, the rider who was a real hero yesterday in his first Tour de France, involved in the crash which took out Xavier Zandio. And in fact, then Di Gregorio plugged on, held onto the peloton to the last 10 and 15k, came in last on the day, but then it was found he'd actually broken his elbow and is now out of the race. This is quite a route today though, Paul. Plenty of climbs. We've done 3 of them, but we still have 5 to come on the road, plus a couple of sprints. And the interest towards the end, a second category climb at Haute-Follin, and at the Croix de Libération, that's a third category climb, before what we know now is a very tricky drop in towards the town in Autun.
Well, a number of our commentators on different channels have actually been out to have a look at the run in towards the finish line. Riders like Rolf Sorensen, who himself was a stage winner and aware of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, he thought that it was a very tricky run down to the finish line. And with about 500 meters to go, there is a very dodgy corner.
Yes, it's going to be a most interesting ride today. As we see, the skies are lovely. It's actually quite warm at the finishing line right now. Brilliant sunshine, just what we want on the Tour de France. As the riders now settle in, and we now know that the CSC may still be in yellow tonight with Cancellara, but they're making other teams do the work here at the main field, and that they've started to chase very early on today. At one stage, these leaders were 14 minutes 40 seconds up. It's already down to 9:28. You see the little icons, yellow-green. That's the location of the 2 principal leaders of the Tour. They're both in the peloton at 9:27. We're looking at the 4 leaders here, with Gianpaolo Sciulla at the back for the moment. Chance to look at 109.4 kilometers to go. A lot of the work is being done by the rider in green, according to the statistics. 30% of the work, in fact, to 25% of Sylvain Chavanel. Chavanel played the true gentleman teammate yesterday, and that's how he was referred to in all of the papers. He wouldn't win the final climb in the breakaway yesterday because he would have taken the jersey off his teammate Ogier. And Ogier appreciated that.
Well, actually, the funny story is, in fact, he went back to his team manager in the car behind and said to his team manager, I'm going to take this sprint and I'm going to take the points and steal the jersey away from my teammate. But he was only joking at the time.
Okay, well done. But today's a different matter. Today's another day. He's got into the move again. Ogier himself tried to get away right from the gun. They were on him immediately. And yet when Chavanel went, he was able to move away. That's the way it goes. But now he's free, and he's now the new leader of the King of the Mountains at the moment. He scored 17 points overall now. So that's a good score at this stage on the second category climb of the Haute-Follin. 4 riders still clear. I thought they would have been wiped out, but all of a sudden, a little bit of a distraction back in the field with the odd tumble. And the result is they're holding their own on the climb just now. 10 points for the top of the climb. So they would desperately like to stay away. These forests here creating a beautiful area of France as they steadily make progress uphill, but it's gradual. The gap coming down, a higher tempo of the peloton inside 2 minutes, 1:47 now we're being told, as they continue to keep a high tempo. Sciulla preparing now to do quite a bit of work. I'd like to have another look at the peloton just now and see what's going on there, but there we are. It is still Schüller. That's the official start of the King of the Mountains. 5 kilometers to the top.
Well, that's not a lot of fun. These riders in this leading group would be a much happier group of riders if that banner had indicated 1 kilometer to go to the summit. Acceleration there coming from Sylvain Chavanel, and Bonnet not too happy with this gradient.
He's just hooked onto the back wheel here of Chavanel, who now is getting very tired. And he's being outpaced by a pure climber here in Schüller, and Schüller is ripping off the King of the Mountains and losing him. He's won every climb today. No, this is Schüller. This is Schüller here at the back. It is Chavanel who started to push away and decided he wants to hold on for those 10 points. Well, there's a turn up, and Bonnet can't complete with this. He also is losing contact with Schüller.
Well, Bonnet is a little bit of a sprinter, really, so he won't be at home on the slopes of a climb like this. Sylvain Chavanel is a man who is capable of riding high in the overall standings of the Tour, so he has the ability to climb as well as ride a very good individual time trial. These guys now, Phil, will just have to find their own rhythm, try and stay as comfortable as possible, and wait for the return of the main field.
There's a typical picture of the Tour de France, the race directors, the referees watching, all the press motorcyclists, the photographers. He wants them all out the way because there's a big split on now, and there'll be nobody allowed in that gap for a moment as the Bolo World rider and Crédit Agricole rider lose contact with the 2 French riders at the front. A little bit surprised that Schüller has been unhitched, but he has been seen to be tired ever since he caught up the leaders, and the gap has opened quite quickly at 125 the spread now.
Well, 125 is not very much at all, and you can be absolutely certain that the main field will be charging up this climb. Philippe Gilbert has found himself a brand new set of legs, and he's decided he wants to try and keep this breakaway clear for as long as possible, because Gilbert is actually a very good sprinter. Now, his thinking about this at the moment, as we see the sprinters now coming off the back of the Group Tour. Hussop, the winner of yesterday, not going to be disputing the sprint at the finish this afternoon, but for Gilbert, the reason he's forcing at the front is he wants to stay clear and maybe stay in the front group, because if he can survive the 3rd category climb towards the end, he could win the stage.
Well, Hussop complains daily of problems with a sciatic nerve. It didn't seem to affect his sprint yesterday, but as soon as he's on the climb, he's now slipped off the back here, and not with a group, but on his own. That doesn't look good. There's the team car saying, how are you? What do you want? Do you want to leave some water with you or anything? Because we're going to have to leave you and go up to the lead.
After this one, because there's a final 3rd category of the climb of the day, which is the Croix de la Libération, and that is a pretty nasty little climb, which is situated a step of just about 15 kilometers to go, and I think that's an ideal launch pad for somebody to try and surprise the whole field and try and get themselves a win, because that then is almost completely downhill towards the finish.
Well, the peloton showed every sign of wiping out this breakaway 50 kilometers ago, and then they gradually turned off the chase and just kept tempo. They never shut this door at all. And who knows, we may be looking at the day's winners here, the way that the chase is not yet consolidated at the back. Coming up to the final run into the finishing now. Now, is Gilbert going to finally say, I'm sorry, but I want this one? The rider leaving is Sylvain Chavanel, the face of concentration of Philippe Gilbert. And probably the finish is just around that top corner. Big crowd up here as well.
Big crowd have turned out to see this high spot of the early part of the Tour de France, almost 900 meters in altitude. And it's Gilbert who's setting the pace on the front, the French-speaking Belgian rider on the FDJ team. Chavanel very happy, I think, to have an ally like Gilbert, because these are 2 strong bike riders, and they have got a very good chance of creating a little bit of a surprise. Chavanel goes through the inside there. He's waiting and looking to see if he can spot where the banner is, and there it is, just around the corner. He's making his way forward, and again, he's going to get himself maximum points, and he will, at the end of the day now, Phil, have a very serious advantage and a very serious lead in the King of the Mountains classification.
Well, he's now got 37. And Gilbert has got himself a 23, so they are well clear now of everybody.
By the front end of the main field, William Bonnet on the left-hand side in the green and white, and Gianpaolo Ciulla on the right-hand side as he keeps changing around in the red and white of Team Barlow World, back in the main field and allowing the main field to pass safely.
And it looks as though it will be a tricky way in today. These are the two leaders as we go back again. This is Vinokurov, and this has just happened on the left of the road. Vinokurov here, the rider with him, and he doesn't look too happy at all, is his strong teammate Column. Now, we don't know how that happened. There's a slow motion for you. Hasn't really told us a lot. That's Colomb. And it looks as though Vinokurov has either winded himself or hurt himself here. And another teammate coming back to help them as well. Well, this has not been the day for Astana. They're about 26 kilometres, 25 and a half to go. That has happened. And the man who is the people's favourite to win this race is not looking happy there. And the number 2 man, Andreas Kloden, has also been down today. Well, these are very strange days in the Tour de France. What strange days we're having in the Tour de France, Paul. We've had Kloden on the floor. Now we're getting Vinokurov on the floor. What is going on down there?
Well, I think, Phil, we did predict it was going to be a strange day, but Alexander Vinokurov went down very hard there, and I wonder if that accident actually involved a motorbike that was going by. But when you look at the main field like this, stretched out at almost 55 kilometres an hour, Vinokurov is going to have a very hard time trying to get himself back into this bike race. He's got Antonio Colom with him, but it's going to be panic on board the Astana machine.
Well, this is amazing, and you know, we all the time are talking about the very, very difficult and dangerous run down off the hills into Autun, convinced that the organisers were not expecting all of these riders to approach the town together. There could be many more surprises to come here. Look at our cameras panning the countryside to find just what has happened to the #1 Tour favourite.
He's not there. We're waiting to see arrive in the picture there. We cut away from it, but we were waiting to see where was Alexander Vinokurov. Just before the start, the name on the lips of everybody of the #1 favourite was Alexander Vinokurov. There he is. He's got a lot of teammates along around him, but we're looking at a big gap now to pull this man back into the race. He's sitting at the back there. He's the rider with the white helmet. This is going to be a massive team time trial for these riders.
The only man not there will be Andreas Kloden. They've left him in the peloton as a reserve. The whole team's been sent back, other than Kloden, to bring this man back to the race.
Well, there are 6 riders there have dropped back for Alexander Vinokurov. Rather interesting to note, Phil, that when Andreas Kloden had his problem, only 1 rider dropped back to help him. I think we know who is the boss of this squad.
Well, you're absolutely right. And now Vinokurov sat at the back of this group, going to not panic now. He's just going to rely on the team to do their job. That's why they're in the Tour de France, to see this man is kept in the right place. And now they've got to put him back. These boys are going to have to ride at between 55 and 60 kilometres an hour.
Just tagged on the back there is my old favourite on the flatlands, Johan van Someren. He'll be breathing a sigh of relief that he's got a little bit of help to get himself back into the race. These men now have been chasing for 2 hours. They've got to keep the pressure on, but for Alexander Vinokurov, as you say, Phil, rightly, he must not panic. He's got to use his team to pace him back into looking at a race situation with 2 leaders 23 seconds ahead of the main field. Alexander Vinokurov there, just at the back of his teammates there, is around about a minute behind that peloton. He has not panicked, though. He really is a seasoned professional. You cannot panic at a moment like this, because you could find yourself losing some serious time. There are the 2 leaders on the slopes of the Croix de la Libération, and there's the main field.
Oh, and well, the camera foreshortens. Let's hope it's going to keep them away at least for the last climb of the day. Then they were cleaned up. Here goes Fabian Weckmann from the front of the bunch, the champion of Germany, good climber, former king of the mountains in the Giro d'Italia. He's having a go. The trouble is, he's a carrot now, and they're going to chase him, and that is surely going to take them up to the 2 leaders.
Well, that will very rapidly take them up to the 2 leaders. The only 2 Astana riders, Phil, by the way, who did not stand by the side of the road and wait for Alexander Vinokurov are Andreas Kloden and, of course, Andrei Kashekin, the 2 leaders of Rechange, if you like, in case Vinokurov doesn't get himself back into this bike race. But I think, knowing Alexander Vinokurov, he will fight back one way or another.
He might not. I don't know whether he'll get back, but he's trying to limit his losses for sure. It's not easy. There goes Weckmann. Almost looks straight into our living room there as he goes past the camera. He's trying to reach them, and if he reaches them on his own, they still have a chance, because they'll have added strength, and a good one as well. I take my hat off to these two today. They've really matured in the Tour de France today, these two riders.
They certainly have. They're on the slopes of the climb now. Chavanel wondering, will I get these 3 points at the top? Well, no, 4 points because it's a third category climb. They're still working together. They are probably hoping that Fabian Wegman comes across, then they'll try and latch onto him. But it's a tall order to ask them to lift it that little bit more, because they have really ridden well over these last 40 kilometres.
Well, they've still got 4 kilometres to climb up this hill. It's an awful long way. Not quite as steep as the slopes of the Folin, but La Libération is still going to be a tough one because they're tired now. They've been in the front virtually all day. And as the helicopters go up to give the VIPs the bird's eye view of the last climb of the day, we're more concerned about the long way down. It is very steep, extremely twisty, and we are convinced the organisers never thought 180 riders would make that descent together.
Well, it's going to be a very risky descent on the way down there. Look at this now. Team Rabobank have come to the front end of the main field, and not too far away is Oscar Freire. This is the kind of finish that Oscar Freire likes, but Fabian Cancellara is still there in the yellow jersey. I didn't think he would hold on here this afternoon, but he's going to.
It's the maillot jaune on your shoulders. It makes you ride like two men. And the peloton now are fancying Rasmussen for some points on the climb. And also, it looks as though the catch, this is Philippe Gilbert, has cracked, I think, as the peloton are coming right up on him. 5 seconds, they're saying.
Well, Philippe Gilbert has slowly but surely given up there. You can see Sylvain Chavanel just insisting for a little bit longer, hoping he can hold on to the top of that climb. Look at his face here. He's got himself maximum points on every climb of the day so far, and he's hoping he will survive this one too. Rabobank, though, as you can see, Phil, have got themselves very much organised here.
Well, they've still got 3 kilometres of this climb. Gilbert will go back, it looks like, and Rabobank wants to bring Rasmussen up, and maybe Oscar Freire as well, because once over this climb, all obstacles are behind the riders. He looked over his shoulder. He would not have seen the peloton. They appeared as he looked the other way. He doesn't realise it, and now he will.
Oh, now he does. There he is. He's got about 20 bike lengths in front of him, but you can see the orange streak now on the front end of the main field. That is Team Rabobank. They are a great squad. They've waited in the wings for an awful long time. There's Michael Bogert on the front. You can recognise him from that big smile of his, but that smile has now turned into a massive grimace. But the Saunier Duval have decided they're going to put the hammer down as we close up to 2.5 kilometres to the summit of the Côte de la Croix de la Libération.
Well, they're all at it now, because anybody that can get a lead by the top of this climb has got just 8 kilometres. Meanwhile, he's in the field here. He looks as though he's got rid of all his teammates, except the one man still taking the pace for him is Maxim Iglinski, who's riding the Tour de France, one of the great young hopes of this team, and he's there to pull back his captain, and he's going to try and do it. A sprinter with him there is Ventoso. He won't take part in this. He's just thankful somebody's taking him back towards the peloton.
What I appreciate about Alexander Vinokourov here is he's had a lot of bad luck, that's absolutely certain, but he's not giving up. He's battling, he's making sure that he loses as little time as possible. It is so hard to ride yourself back into a bike race like this when you're going past all of the riders who are actually being dropped from the main field.
Well, this rider here from Saunier Duval, I'm not sure who it is, but we think it might be De La Fuente, David De La Fuente, who's made the move from the peloton. But I think he's misjudged it, because looking by his face, he might well be dropping back here.
Well, he was trying, and he's got himself a slight advantage. All he can hope is that they turn off the pressure at the front end of the main field, but nobody now is going to turn off any pressure at all. 4 riders from Rabobank on the front end of the peloton, and in 5th or 6th place is the French national champion, Christophe Moreau, but everybody else is still in there. Team Astana are trying to move their way through the main field, and still Alexander Vinokourov is going past riders who have been dropped. I'm sure the pressure is on the front end of this main field for the win, but you can see that Alexander Vinokourov is making his way through the peloton. A slightly illegal manoeuvre there by the team car, but they're there theoretically in support of their 4 kilometres to go. There's a series of 3 very nasty hairpin bends for the moment. Everybody appears to be upright still. Yellow jersey on the front. Fabian Cancellara is riding the race of his life here. I thought the race of his life was on the road into Compiègne, but this, keeping his yellow jersey on a more small mountain stage like today, is phenomenal.
Now I know it's Popovich when he freewheels down like that. That sets him up. But do you know what, Paul? Again, Cancellara is using this incredible strength, and he might well join this rider here. Look at him, he's running away with it.
Well, he's creating gaps there.
Oh, he's wide, he's wide. He was terribly wide. I could see him going all wrong. He did well to hold that, and they're all together at the front.
All together again. Just watch this as he comes round this corner. These riders, you have to take risks if you want to win, but all of a sudden you don't know what the corner is going to be like. He's gone straight off the road there. Cancellara chasing him like a bullet, keeps it upright, doesn't fall down, and is straight back onto the road. These men are phenomenal bike handlers. Team Lampre have got control of the front end of the main field. They're inside of 4 kilometres to go now, but this is just a little bit of chaos. This is an unbelievable finish.
Well, we said it was a rather difficult finale today. I think we've been proven there. This is back with the Vinokurov group, and that little bit of hesitation may help him. Hats off to Tom Bonan. He's driving this group now, and Vinokurov will be very grateful of a chance for just a few deep breaths. Lampre advantage them now as they get their team onto the front to pull.
Well, once they get down into the outskirts of town, there's still a few dodgy little corners to go for, but look how ragged that main field is looking. A lot of pressure now being put on the front end of this group by Team Lampre. They feel now that they've got the big chance. Looking over their shoulders, they want to see what sort of damage they're doing. Well, big damage, I have to say. The big damage today is Alexander Vinokurov. Not of his own volition. He went down in a nasty crash, but he's still trying to keep himself in this bike race.
Well, this is turning out to be a superb finale yet again. Lampre's up there, the French are up there. I think George Hincapie is up there as well as they go under what must be 2 kilometres to the finish here. And they are now beginning to run away from the climb. But believe me, once they come into the town, they make, I think it's a right-hand turn, a left-hand turn, isn't it?
They got
and
left
then they
and
climb
right now.
up a hill to the finish. It'll catch them out. Watch it.
It will catch them out. That sweeping right-hander, that's Hincapie now up into second position. A good call today, George Hincapie, because Hincapie in the early part of his career was a very good sprinter. We saw him do that. He can get himself over the mountains. And bear in mind today that if George Hincapie can get himself the win of the stage, he can get himself the yellow jersey. And Hincapie, I know, has worked that one out.
Well, I have a feeling now that Vinokurov, he's fourth in line here, will concede some seconds today, but he hasn't conceded anything like it looked like he was going to lose a couple of minutes at one stage. He's come back to the front. He's going to try and knock off every second he can. He is now under the 2 to go. As these are the leaders under the 2 to go. I'm sorry. That's about 1.3 miles from the finish.
Well, there you can see Vinokurov is a kilometre behind the front end of the main field, but at speeds like this, that is actually less than the 1 minute mark. You can see the organisation, somebody moving to the front there, trying to create a big surprise. That's a late minute burst for the line, and on a day like this, you can surprise anybody. Saunier Duval coming across there. That's David Miller, I think, the big, tall, lanky man from Scotland.
Well, if it is Miller, this is a shorter climb, but it's an awful long way to the finish here. He may have gone too soon. Boyd Telecom have replaced Laurent Lefebvre at the front, and I can't see this rider's face at the moment in the darkness of the pictures. The field are coming up behind. If this is Miller, and it looks like him, he has got to wait just a little bit because he's too far from the line.
Well, the sprinters now have got to get their men on the front and get this organised, but Miller has now gone around that corner. Vinokurov, we keep going back to see where he is. He's around about 50 seconds in arrears. He's trying to save his Tour de France with this ride. He won't have any friends at all in that group. He has to take his own responsibility. He has to ride to the finish line and keep going. He's inside of 2 kilometres to go.
Well, we're waiting for the leaders to reach 1, so Vinokurov, and they're about there, so he is holding them at around about 50 seconds. Vinokurov, and I think he's destined to lose that now. These 2 riders are still clear, and it looks as though I don't think that's Miller, you know, but it could be. As he gets into the front, it looks as though he hasn't had a shave this morning, and the rider who's got onto his back wheel there, I think, is Tony Geslin, and it doesn't matter because the Lampre are closing in.
Lampre are there, they're locked in. There's a line of riders right behind them. George Hincapie's disappeared from the front end of the main field. Cadel Evans is not far away from the front end of this group. He's up there in about 5th or 6th. The yellow jersey is safely in that main field here as they line themselves up for the line. 400 metres to go.
And Eric Zabel has put himself in a brilliant position. Centre picture and dodging, and Frere's on his shoulder. This is a battle of the sprinters now. Zabel is out of it. Frere isn't as he races up to the line. Eric Frere, Hincapie's going after them. And also there is Napolitano, but the man who has won on the line, I think, is Fischer. Pozzato. Filippo Pozzato has taken it. Well, he was on the lips of a lot of people this morning, but he produced one incredible finish to win that.
Well, what a race that has been this afternoon. Let's have a look at the finish line here from the air. Now look at Pozzato there on the left-hand side in the lime green jersey, waiting for it all to open. Zabel had it right, Frere had it right, but right through the middle, Pippo Pozzato said at the start of the day here, Phil, I'm going for this. This is my stage. It's not very often a rider can pick a stage, predict that he's going to win, and come up with the victory. Oscar Frere right up there as well, but here is the arrival of Alexander Vinokurov's group with Tom Bonen.
Well, what's the time? This is a loss of time, I'm afraid, for the #1 favourite, the first big favourite to concede today. But he's ridden brilliantly to lose just less than a minute. He's still a little way to go. In fact, he probably will lose more than a minute here as he tries now himself to fight all the way to the line. The minute's gone by. He's left himself a handicap for the remaining 2 weeks and a bit of the Tour de France. Vinokurov will have to fight his way through the Alps now and get his own back when he can, because he's had a rather unlucky ending to the day here. As he comes up to the line, he brings the peloton home, a minute and 20 seconds or so.
That is a huge amount of time to lose on a day when you were expecting to finish in the main field. So Alexander Vinokurov, first of all, we have to figure out, Phil, whether he's seriously injured and if he can carry on. But look at that coming up through the middle. There is the big lunch of the line. There are the golden locks of Pippo Pozzato. He said before the start of today's stage, this is going to be my victory. Well, he was right.
He was very much right. The speed of the sprint was just short of 50 miles an hour, or 78 kilometers an hour. That is amazing. For nearly 50-mile-an-hour sprint, and it was slightly uphill, by the way, too. But Pozzato gets it, and second looks like it was Frere. But we'll just wait. I think that's Berghout on the right-hand side there. As we take a look here, that's where Pozzato is in the sprint, and a long way back. But because it was an uphill finish, and he followed the wheel of George Hincapie, it looks to me, from up here, as he then decided to change direction and nip through the traffic in his own route. And he got up behind Zabel, and then he got behind Jeslan, and then he went over the top of them at full speed ahead. Napolitano taking him on, and also Oscar Frere on the far right. And it was, in fact, Frere second, Napolitano will be third on the line. It will be. And I'm just still trying to make out and confirm that rider from T-Mobile. But I think it was possibly Kim Kirken.
Oscar Frere, who won 2 stages last year.
Bernardi was in third place. Kirken was fourth. I didn't recognise him because until recently he was the champion of Luxembourg. Of course, he wears his team colours now. And Eric Zabel getting fifth. There was a moment I thought Zabel had made the move. Also, I thought George Hincapie had done it too, but he slipped away to sixth. Stefan Schumacher eighth. Top 10 completed by Jerome Pino of the Bouygues Telecom. Cadel Evans, that's a very good result for Cadel in a sprint like that. And the yellow jersey of Cancellara in 12th place. Valverde was there. These are big names in the Tour de France. The one that's missing, of course, Michael Rogers, also there at 19th, was that unfortunate crash to Alexander Vinokurov. Fabian Cancellara still keeps that jersey despite what it was a great race. Cloden keeps his second place. Pozzato leapfrogs into third. Miller is now fourth, and George Hincapie had another great day. He's going good, George, in fifth place. Gusev will keep his white jersey, his best young rider, in sixth. And then the other riders here, Thomas Dekker having a brilliant Tour de France the first time around in ninth place. And Oscar Frere into 13th here, gets small bonus today. Kashikin and Cadel Evans still riding high, just 56 seconds off. A bit further down for you, Michael Rogers, another man that's waiting for his day. He's in 17th place, and Zabel, the sprinter, in 19th place behind last year's runner-up, Oscar Pereira. Let's go down to the podium. Here he comes, Filippo Pozzato. As Paul's just mentioned, in the last time we were here, 98, a Swedish rider, Magnus Bagstedt, won the stage. He's not been selected, but he's on the same team as Pozzato, Liquigas. And this, for Pozzato, is a special win. He last won in Saint-Brieuc a few years ago. We're down on the famous Côte d'Or department of France. The riders now on the eve of their journey into the Alps. 183 riders have made it so far. And now just how many will complete the journey to Paris? This is a beautiful day today. Alexander Vinokourov stays in the race after the crash yesterday and the big chase back by him and his team. We're entertained on the finishing line here in Bourg-en-Bresse by the Tour de France riders of tomorrow. Look at this. He had a mediocre prologue, got a bit better on stage one, Paul, and then a series of great results.
Well, that's the important thing about a man like Eric Zabel, is he's very consistent. Yes, not a very good ride in the prologue, but that's not his discipline. But if you look at the rest of his performances, he's been very much inside of the top 13 on every flat stage, and that's why Mr. Consistency has got himself the green jersey, a title, Phil. Let's not forget that he's won 6 times.
Indeed, he has. At 37 years of age, he is now. He's got 102 points after yesterday. Tom Bonan didn't score, sits on 98. Neither did Robin McEwen. Oscar Freire did, and he's come up a little bit to the side of Vinokourov. Talking to Stuart O'Grady here, both his knees are stitched and his elbow bandaged. Fabian Cancellara, another great performance yesterday. He keeps his yellow jersey, and they've also got the yellow numbers on now as the leading team, CSC.
But a long flat stage in store for the riders, and as soon as they came out of the starting gate, everybody was starting to be just a little bit nervous because of the fact that they knew today was a day that may well be a rest day before the big mountains. The whole of Team Astana getting around Alexander Vinokourov. They'll have to nurse him through today.
Well, once we got to the first sprint at Bligny-sur-Ouche, it was Bradley Wiggins. He went away after 2 kilometres. He is now into double figures with his lead, but here he was leading by 15 minutes and 25. Great sprint, very determined sprint by Tom Bonan. He gets the 4 points for second. He's now equal first alongside Zabel with 102 points apiece. So that's going to be a big fight today. Out to the climb of the day at Grandmont, Wiggins still well clear.
Well, Wiggins actually building up a pretty massive advantage here, and he went over the top of this climb still about a quarter of an hour in front of the front end of the main field, going for his solo effort. But the man who leads the King of the Mountains classification just happens to be his teammate Sylvain Chavanel after his escapade of yesterday, and he sweeps up the rest of the points from the main field.
Third there, Juan Manuel Garate, former champion of Spain. Then just at the same point, a change of bicycles for the yellow jersey. No big panic here. But obviously a problem, I think, with his saddle, indicating there to get the team mechanics have a look at it. So Cancellara back on the highway.
Well, he rides back through. Nobody waited for him to pace him back into the main field at this point, but the mechanic had repaired the bicycle. Now just watch this, because at this point there, he'd actually handed over a bicycle, a bottle to the spectating policeman.
He did indeed. But he's back in the race now. The main field are not angry, and he wears number 33 with those yellow numbers, chatting there with his team management, Alan Galopin. And so Fabian Cancellara now is back at the race. He's just tailed off and have a chat here. The Wiggins, the latest gap now, is just on 17 minutes. The peloton itself has stepped up the pace. CSC have taken control now and decided double figures is enough. We still have 123 kilometres to go.
Team CSC have held the yellow jersey right since the start in London, where their man Fabian Cancellara won himself the prologue time trial, and he could see himself lose this to Bradley Wiggins if they don't take responsibility, and he may well just enjoy taking that yellow jersey one more day into the mountains. I don't think he wants to relinquish it, but it's going to be a long, hard chase now to pull back 17 minutes. In fact, this is the biggest breakaway advantage we've had since the Tour started. The maximum lead we had was 13 minutes and 50 seconds on stage 3. That was bettered yesterday by the breakaway, who managed to get to 14 minutes and 45 seconds, but Bradley Wiggins for the moment has gone better than both.
Well, if he did win the stage, he would go one better than Brian Robinson, the great cyclist of the 50s. In 1959, Brian Robinson won a stage of the Tour de France for Great Britain by 20 minutes and 6 seconds. And to do it, he was in an escape of 140 kilometres. Well, if Bradley's going to do it today, he will be in an escape of 197 kilometres.
Here at all, everybody is waiting. Everybody's scared to take the responsibility too soon. They all want to have a line of riders on the front end of the main field, but they don't want to start until they're absolutely certain they can take it right the way through to the finish.
Well, T-Mobile have moved 5 riders in the pink jerseys up to the right. Here he is. That's rather a nice camera shot, and what a horrible sight. We could be playing Cowboys and Indians here now as they come over the ridge. They've spotted him. There is the face on the right of Bradley Wiggins, and for the first time in nearly 5 hours, the peloton can now read his number once again. It has been a truly outstanding performance today by Wiggins. It had to come to an end. It's not quite at an end yet, but it will happen.
8.5 kilometres to go, and Bradley Wiggins very shortly will see the riders who were with him about 190 kilometres ago for the first time. There's still no one at the front end of the main field, Phil, has had the courage or the strength in their team to go to the front and start this lead out. We are so close to the finish. We're looking here at the stage victory on a stage of the Tour de France, and everybody's worried. They realise now this is the last chance for the sprinters. Fabian Cancellara is sitting there in a very dangerous position. Look how close the field is packed together. They're waiting to start, but they're reticent to start because of the fear of making a mistake.
I think that could be the case. They're throwing off all the drinking bottles there because even half a kilo is lighter on the bikes. Get rid of all the fluid now. It's all about speed now when it's called for. There's only a certain percentage get involved in the finish. The others, they're preoccupied, just trying to keep out of trouble, making sure they finish in the group, because the group always gets the same time. That's all Cancellara has to do today, finish in the group to be in yellow tomorrow. But the sprinters, they need to be at the front of the group for the points in the green jersey. Well, this is amazing. I have to say, this poor guy, Bradley Wiggins, they are making sure he is cooked and overcooked.
Well, he's been pan-fried, that's for certain, out on the course this afternoon, because we've seen temperatures in excess of 30 degrees Celsius. At the back of the pack, we've seen a very hard day in the saddle for Alexander Vinokourov, but at least when he gets home to his hotel room this afternoon, Phil, he can put a tick through stage 6. I've got through it, thank you very much.
I'm not sure that to me that might mean he's not feeling good.
Well, he's riding at the back end of the main field. Sergei Ivanov is the rider alongside him on the left-hand side. It's been a tough day for Alexander Vinokourov. Let's not forget that man has got a lot of stitches in both knees and his elbow, but he's ridden through this stage here. But will he come out and fight again tomorrow? Look at his fingers as well. Everything is patched up.
That doesn't tell me good news at all. Alexander, we know pretty well. I don't like what we've just seen there. It has been a very sticky day. There he is on the left as the field go around him. The man who has dictated the race has just been caught at 4 miles from the finish. What an incredible race. He broke away 1 mile in. He's led for 120 miles today.
Well, there's a lot of riders. Their heart rates have dropped down this afternoon. Sergio Paulino, Olympic silver medalist from Athens, his heart rate is only beating at about 130 beats a minute. Phil, this is a very strange sprint. At the moment, they're actually playing into the hands of Robbie McEwen. McEwen likes a dangerous sprint. He likes a chaotic sprint, and they really need to pick up the pace on a little bit of chaos, and I have a feeling this is going to be a very chaotic sprint. 2.5 kilometres to go. Quick Stepper in control, but not with a big long train.
Not at all. They're trying to block the race rather than lead it up to the line here. Just watch the movement behind now. McEwen is right there. He's about 5 riders back out of our vision just now. He's searching for the wheel of Eric Zabel and Bonen. Not surprisingly, as those 3 will also better watch out for the whereabouts of Thor Hushovd and Oscar Freire. The T-Mobile boys, I think today are riding for Bernard Eisel rather than Cavendish, but I think Cavendish is in amongst it.
Well, Cavendish seems to be right up at the front there in about 9th or 10th position. The rider there from Quick Step says, I've done my turn, I'm swinging off. The small figure you can see there, the second rider from T-Mobile is Mark Cavendish, zigzagging about, wondering which race wheel shall I follow. There's the chaos. There's nobody got control. There's a rider at the front from Team Milram now trying to stretch it out, but I've never seen, charging into the line at 1.8 kilometres to go, such a bunched up front end to a sprint so far in this Tour.
There is no organisation. Cavendish is just off on the left to our picture. His teammate dropped right out of it, but look at an early move there. Zabel wants them up. His 2 teammates here are saying, just wind it up, go, go, go. How much power have they got left?
Zabel's a little bit too far to the front now. He's in 4th position. It's still outside of the 1 kilometre mark. Right on his wheel, though, is Oscar Freire. There's another move coming up. Another rider from Milram wants to try and control the pack if they can. Boonen is stuck in the middle there. He's got no teammates at all around him. He's looking for a way out. He feels a at this point a little bit panicked because he's got that boxed-in feeling.
Well, underneath the trees they go. Hushoft is dead centre, and just behind at the moment, Frere's off to the right. Are they right? Is Julian Dean going to finish this off for New Zealand? He's got the front again, but he's gone too soon to the front. But this is a massive power result as Marcus Berghout goes for the line now. Who is going to take the sprint here? Hunter is coming through. Hunter's made a dive for the line of Robert Foster as they come to the line. Boner is now coming. This is an absolute free-for-all, and Foster is making the final throws, but in a final dig for the line now, as this looks like Stegmans is going for the line, and he gets it. It's Bonin right on the line, and he's made it at last.
Well, he was looking for that one. Phil, he was going all over the place, left and right through the middle. He wanted to come out. Let's just have a look at that one more time. Gerolsteiner were the boys who really sorted it out. Bonin is down there in 5th place. All of a sudden he starts to move up. The lead-out man for Forster moves across, forcing Tom Bonin to go right the way round the outside. He comes back in to replace himself in the middle. He's got Oscar Freire challenging him there. But today Tom Bonin had the bit between his teeth. He wanted this win. He wanted to get his green jersey back with pride. And look at Eric Zabel. He's still right up there in 2nd or 3rd position. But Tom got the win that he's been looking for a couple of days.
Well, I make it Bonin, Freire, Zabel, Chavanel from that shot, but the camera might prove me wrong. That is a very determined win. So Tom Bonin is back in green tonight, and he's got his stage win.
Well, that's what he wanted. He was looking for that. He's been very consistent in all of the sprints. It was a very strange sprint, Phil, but at the end they managed to kick up the maximum speed. Bonin, a lot of people said he doesn't have it. He hasn't got the force anymore, but I saw it yesterday on Tom Bonin when he climbed that climb. He was the best of the big men to get over that climb. Admittedly, he finished a long way back, but look at the gap there that he's got. That's a fairly good beating there of Oscar Freire. It's almost a full bicycle length. And then in 3rd place, you're right, it was Eric Zabel. But where was Robbie McEwen? I think McEwen got caught up in the little bit of turmoil, a little bit.
For him, he's all washed and brushed up now, and the sprinter Tom comes on to get his stage prize. He'll be back to get his green jersey shortly. 10 wins now this year, more than 20 last year, but he started now. He's had a bit of an out period, and he's now coming back onto form. It's taken him a week of the Tour de France to find the podium. He really had hoped he would be carrying yellow in Belgium. That wasn't to be. Cancellara just proving that little bit too quick in the prologue time trial. Mont Blanc, there's no road up there, otherwise the Tour de France would climb that as well, but the Alps are around the riders now. The mountains will embrace the Tour de France until the end of the rest day and Tuesday evening. Well, this is a beautiful, beautiful day if you're not a rider in the Tour de France. If you are a rider, you are going to have a very hot day as you climb up the mountain. That's the finishing line. Tranquil at the moment, just the French who are celebrating Bastille Day. These are pictures out on the course here. He's in the peloton. He started. He looks pretty cool. Paul Showing thinks he's fine. We're going to find out in the next 3 or 4 hours. Let's have a look then, Paul, at the overall contenders, the men we think should be in the hot seat today. Andreas Kloden goes out in 2nd. He's injured. 33 off Cancellara's yellow jersey. Leipheimer well poised in 22nd, only a minute behind. So too Denny Menchov. Alejandro Valverde just a minute 03. Sastre at 1:16. Vinokurov, he lost that 1 minute 20 when he crashed. He is 2 minutes 10 back, so he's going to have to find somewhere along the way to make it all up. It's all about the climbing today, Paul, and Sylvain Chavanel goes out in the polka dot jersey.
Well, he goes out in the polka dot jersey. He got his lead in that competition really on what I would term as the flat stages, but Sylvain Chavanel has got 40 points to Philippe Gilbert's 23. William Bonnet there in 3rd at 15 points, but there's a lot more points available today, Phil, and the big climb down towards the end is a first category climb where the riders can get 15 points for going over there in 1st place. There are lesser climbs on the day. The 4th category climbs will only give you 3, 2 and 1. The 3rd category climb 4, 3, 2 and 1. But if you want to win this competition, you've got to concentrate on the big ones.
Yes, they certainly have, and we have had a tremendous start to the day. Cancellara hasn't, by the way. He's been under pressure all day It is stretching out at the back of the peloton here as the riders move off, heading for the mountains. The first sprint coming 16 kilometers in. Big Tom making the most of this because he doesn't expect to be around all day. A great turn of speed here. He's chased by Eric Zabel, the man he fears for the green jersey. He gets the 6 points though, Zabel 4, Bernardi 2.
Well, a big battle there, but in the points classification, Boonen opens up his advantage there, 147 to 134. But today, I think, Phil, is not really about the green jersey. It's much more about the polka dot jersey. And Michael Rasmussen came out to play on the third category climb of the day, the Col de Cordier.
Yes, and he gets the points, but at this point, lagging behind the field was the yellow jersey of Cancellara. Gone was Robbie McEwen as well. Gone was Tom Bonen. And Cancellara over the top, 55 seconds in arrears. He has rejoined the main pack. It's going to be a very hot day today, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Conditions, one word, sunny. Not a cloud in the sky. Nice light winds at 9 miles an hour. And it's going to be a wonderful day of scenery too. Just look at that waterfall. Just make sure you've got brakes on your boat as you approach it. That is the Sevrier Cascade. It's 64 meters above the ground when it tumbles down to the stream below, and I should imagine that when the snows are melting is a sensational shot. But there's a big story already today, Paul. We have got now, after a terrific start, 41 kilometers in the first hour. 15 riders are ahead. They're representing 13 teams, and the yellow jersey has got back, but he's been off the back by a minute.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If I was a team manager this afternoon at the back of this peloton, I'd be wondering and scratching my head, what am I going to do now? Because the 15 riders at the front represent some of the major teams. I think they're going to have to try and figure out now just exactly who's going to chase this breakaway down. And of course, I'll bet Paolo Salvadelli is a little bit upset that he lost himself a massive amount of time when he waited for Alexander Vinokourov after his crash 2 days ago. It's going to be very complicated, I think, for all of the team managers, because they are all going to try and wait now to see just exactly which team will chase down this massive breakaway group.
Those are the boys who've got the heart rate monitors on. Carlson, Auger, Martinez. He's in the breakaway. Martinez, Verdugo tried, he fell back, and Marcus Burkhardt has been off the back with Cancellara. So their hearts are already running pretty high. We'll go through all of the competition of the break for you, but I can tell you that Igor Martinez is up there, and the best placed man in the breakaway is Vaughan of France on Bastille Day. We are on for a big race today. These boys are going to fly towards the Col de Colombia. See, at the main field here, the breakaway has 15 riders in it, representing 13 teams. It's going to be a long, hot day of chasing, I think, towards the Col de la Colombia. Just to run through today, we certainly saw Vinokourov start. He's in the peloton. He has not been in trouble when Cancellara and a big bunch of riders were dropped. He was not one of them, so he might be okay, and neither indeed was Andreas Kloden. But of the 189, there's now only 180 riders left in the race, because not starting today, Oscar Freire still seems to be suffering from that saddle sore injury which has haunted him this last half a season. So Ruben Labato of Sonia Duval didn't start, and as I say, we were wrongly reported yesterday. Enrico Degano abandoning. Our computer apologised to us this morning, but in fact he has abandoned now from the injuries yesterday.
Well, it's interesting to see that Team Predictor Lotto have come up to the front end. People questioning whether or not they would have the power to look after Cadel Evans after using an awful lot of energy on the flat stages to try and keep Robbie McEwen up for his stage victory into Canterbury, but of course for his attempt to win the points jersey for a fourth time.
Just looking at the gap here, it's up to 8:25 now, as the Lotto boys are having to work on the front now. Well, it's time to Delhi on the left of our picture. This is the breakaway of 15 riders. Very brief view for you there as we continue to trace the beautiful chateaus here. And this is the Chateau de Montveron. There's plenty of them around this area. Well, this was built when they built this one in the year 1000, and then it was completely set up in 1316, and it really has been protected through the years. In 1928, 1929 it was renovated. Montveron Chateau.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is one of the inhabitants of the Chateau, Berold de Saxe, was a man who ousted the Saracens from the mountains here around Montviron. That was around the year 1000. So quite a few battles in this part of the world.
Well, where I live, Paul, the Saracens is a very famous rugby team. Not too far from where I live anyway. Back to the race here, an interesting day developing. 13 teams represented. Predictor Lotto has got nobody in it, and of course they're now working to try and limit the escape without using Cadel Evans. Of course, he is the man for the overall classification. The best man in the breakaway, and it is Bastille Day, is the Frenchman Benoit Vaurenard. He started the day just 52 seconds behind Cancellara, so he's now the leader on the road of the Tour de France. The yellow jersey of Cancellara is extremely fragile today. He was left by a minute once the pressure went on the third category climb. We're just arriving here at the sprint at Angle 4, last kilometre.
Bastille Day, well, the 14th of July is the equivalent to the American 4th of July. It's the biggest French national holiday. It's when the peasants actually, during the revolution, stormed the Place de la Bastille, and they introduced that nice little machine they used to use here for a long time called the guillotine, and cut off a few people's heads.
This is Linus Gerdeman of T-Mobile deciding he wants to get the sprint. Not a big resistance from the field, but he'll get the points when he hits the line. 6 points for the green jersey, 6 seconds time bonus as well. Linus Gerdeman, he's a promising young rider. This rider, he had a great Tour of Switzerland a couple of years ago. It's now time to mature by riding the Tour de Fate. They're just a little more than 2 kilometers now from the top of the Crusade climb, which will take us through 75 kilometers today and leave us with 48 miles to race to the finish. The Predictor Lotto team wanted this race lead to be down to 5 minutes before they get to the base of the Col de la Colombière. There's where we are, 4.4 miles this climb, and it goes up to 2,487 feet, has an average gradient of 4.4%. Igor Martinez, he's the big man who started this move for Team Discovery Channel, just checking out the riders in the break. Nice crowds, famous with the cows, the area with their cowbells, so we know where they've gone in the dark as the riders now. And boy, the artists have been working very hard to welcome the Tour to the Alps this year. That is absolutely superb, that with the farm machinery and the big wheels. That'll take a bit of turning, Paul, wouldn't it?
Well, it certainly would, but it's nice to see the machinery with the resplendent yellow colour, which is world famous, and also the sponsor of Team Barlow World. I don't know if you noticed on their jerseys, they just brought in a brand new sponsor for the Tour. No riders from Team Barlow World in the move this afternoon, but we do know that Geraint Thomas and Robbie Hunter are fairly comfortably in the main field. Hunter's so close on a number of occasions to getting himself a stage victory.
They were a little unlucky, actually. Felix Cardenas, their big climber, he went away. And you never know which brake is going to work. You can't try them all. You haven't got the legs. Cardenas went away and he chose the wrong one. They caught it, brought it back, and then Igor Martinez started the move that established the breakaway, which is on at the moment. But then again, it might be just as well they've not been in the break because they're saving energy. I think this bunch will see them later. At least half of the bunch will once they get onto the slopes of the Colombière. I think it'll split into small groups and the big stars will start pedaling on. The other one is Jerome Pinot. They're riding pretty close to the front. Linus Gerdeman, who nipped off to win that hot spot at Angle 4, now sitting at the back of the leading break.
Well, they'll be thinking, the Frenchman, about Vive la France. David de la Fuente has moved off the frontier to get himself some points. And if you remember last year, Phil, I was just saying earlier, he finished third overall in the King of the Mountains classification. And he may well be a little surprise and a bit of a problem for Michael Rasmussen later on in the Tour.
Yes, Rasmussen won't like that, but he probably expected this, so it's good points in the bag here. Third category prize at the top here in the King of the Mountains. Keeps checking out, doesn't want to make any more effort than he has to, as David de la Fuente takes the third category climb and will shortly be on the fourth category climb of the Péguin. Field now making the way gently over the top of the climb. I'd like to have been the other end to see the sprint, but we didn't get to see that. And de la Fuente just waiting for the field now to catch up again. Well, we're over the top of the Crusade. The next up, the Peguan, that comes with 63. So good work, 17. I think the job done there by Cancellara has caused the interest again in the chase. Just on the kilometre from the climb of the Peguan. We're on the climb now. There it is, 1 kilometre to the summit. It's only a short climb, and meanwhile, Wegman here wants more drinks while the pressure stays on at the front.
Well, he won't be allowed to actually take a drink on board till he goes over the top. David de la Fuente on the front here, led the King of the Mountains last year in the Tour, and he'll be thinking about trying to pick himself up a few points on this road this afternoon, because he too will try and probably steal over the next couple of days the lead away from Sylvain Chavanel, which should be fairly solid for at least, well, it will be solid for at least today. I'm not sure about tomorrow. It depends on who goes over the top of the big mountain passes in first place. Well, Wegman has gone, in fact, here from the front straight to the back. He was a rider, if you remembered, a couple of days ago when we were charging into Auton. He made a massive big attack on the slopes of the final climb of the day, the Croix de la Libération. Then all of a sudden, he almost put it into reverse and went straight back through the main field and actually finished with Alexander Vinokourov a minute and 20 seconds behind.
I think, excuse me, Paul, I think he's just realised that the rule you just quoted it. You're not allowed to take drinks on the climb, so he's had to get on with his ride up the hill now and then ask for it when we go down the other side. A little bit of a dry throat. Back to you.
Well, you can see now that moving up to the front of the group, it's Perez from Team Euskaltel-Euskadi that changed over, but as soon as the sight of the finish banner came up, it's the yellow jersey, and look at the acceleration here of David de la Fuente. He really wants to get maximum points here. It's only going to be 3 points at the top of a fourth category climb, but just look how this man dances away from everybody else. He really has got the acceleration in those legs of his, but he's not leaving anything at all up to chance. Today he will have pulled 7 points into the bag. Not very much, but it may well be important at the end of the Tour.
It's a start. He was third in the mountains last year. He might want to notch up to be the best climber in the Tour this year. We know he can climb the high mountains, so he's off to a good start. Now, is he easing up or is he going to wait for the boys there? 6:16 is the gap. Still preoccupied with the drinks. In fact, he got one there. He's still in there somewhere. The cameras haven't picked him up, but we know that he's riding reasonably settled in the peloton. 6 minutes and 5 seconds now. They're closing in at 38 kilometers to go to the finish for this leading group. And a little move here, tempting the riders to come with him. It looks like Perez. Well, I think they're getting a bit twitchy in this breakaway, Paul, because the gap is coming down now, and shortly we're going to be inside the 6 minute mark.
Well, they're all starting to worry a fraction. They will have been receiving information from their team managers that the main field is absolutely flying along in very angry mood. And now these guys are starting to think, well, we've worked like crazy throughout the whole of this stage here this afternoon. What we've got in front of us is a 10-mile, 16-kilometre climb. And they're all thinking, oh, I wonder if I've worked just a little bit too hard in this group this afternoon. Maybe I need to rest for the next kilometre or so.
Well, a lot of chats going on here. Juan Antonio Fletcher wants something from the car, but decided I better get on with this because there's suddenly been an acceleration in the breakaway, and he's been caught just off the back. 6 minutes 5 seconds, and this is a bit of a serious move here because he's tempting. Nobody expected this on the flat roads, because the idea here, and it is Ruben Perez who's made the move, that the idea was to go all as a group of 15 to the Col de Colombier, but he's decided on these roller coasters to just try and see just how strong some of those riders sitting around the back really are. He put Fletcher in more than a spot of bother just then. Fletcher wanted a drink and thought he thought better of it. And they're having to haul him back in here. That's Fletcher just behind, number 55. Vaugrenard, the leader in the breakaway, best placed overall this morning. He's the yellow jersey elect at this minute. 6 minutes and 6 seconds. So this little reaction here by Perez has been a good move, because he started to hold the gap again. That's Bram Tankink jumping off the front, and that's how he reached the breakaway. Now, I'm not too sure why our French television decided we wanted to look at the Alps Mahai just as we get a little sprint off the front of the breakaway. But that is I think the E40 motorway then. Well, as we've left the breakaway, and we have no control over that, we'll just remind you we are heading now for the Col de la Colombière, well, feet, and there's already a move, and this is an immediate attack here, and off the back straight away goes Fletcher, just about. 4 minutes 21 is the gap. Well, as we see the attack at the front, Paul, I noticed also at the back there that Perez had done an awful lot of work in this group. He's the first to go along with Fletcher, while Landeluz, former winner in this very area of the Dauphiné Libé race a few years ago, is the orange jersey trying to come up to the leader.
Well, Jose Ivan Gutierrez, the rider here from Case d'Epargne, was the second best rider in the overall standings. He was just a second behind Vaugrenard, and he realises he's got a very good chance here, Phil, of creating the massive surprise. We said at the start of the day we couldn't really predict who was going to win today's stage, and it may well be that one of these riders may be the new leader at the end of the day. Just looking at the back here, there's a little bit of a problem here, and this is a surprise to me because Paolo Salvadelli has actually put it into reverse gear.
Yes, and he came up to that group and he's been put into trouble as soon as the pace excelled. We're only a couple of kilometres onto the climb of 16 here in the Colombière, so it might be a mental thing here. He knows what's to come, he knows how he's feeling. It's obviously not good, and Gutierrez here has been joined by David de la Fuente. Good news here for David Miller's team, because he's now got a man up here, and these could be the riders who will survive the attacks from the peloton.
Well, David de la Fuente is looking a lot further down the road. Salvadelli not enjoying the climb here. Let's not forget he rode the Giro d'Italia early on in the season. Here I think he's just going to try and survive the Col de la Colombière. He's been in that break throughout the whole of the afternoon, moving forward. Vaugrenard, who was the best placed rider in the breakaway, was hoping to wave the tricolour for France this afternoon. Well, that's not going to happen.
No, that's gone on Bastille Day. He's one of the early ones. Dropped that. Those 15 have cracked wide open here as we move through the following cars with our camera bike. He doesn't give any respect to anybody, does he? Plows his way through, and they have cracked as well here, because this is Jerome Pino also slipping off the back. One of the last men to catch that front group. We're looking at the peloton here now, getting a little bit irritated, shall we say. Gutierrez and De La Fuente have got clear of the front group.
Well, there's going to be a lot of chaos. The yellow jersey now is definitely going to change at the end of the day, because Fabian Cancellara decided on today's stage he was going to work for Team CSC. Well, goodbye, Fabian. Well done. Thanks for the first week of the Tour.
Absolutely. Now just will set his own tempo. There's Tom Bonan also having a chat with Leif Hoster there. These boys, Bradley Wiggins in the centre here too. They're going to survive to get home now. Au revoir. A bientôt. See him tonight, and he'll be inside the time limit for sure. There's so many different Tours de France enacting now, and 3 riders at the front, and Gerdemans has joined.
Well, Gerdeman is a very good rider, but the moves are already, Phil, starting at the front end of the peloton as well. A lot of orange jerseys there on the front end of the main field, and it's AG2R have decided to launch somebody out on their attack. It looks like Calzati. Well,
you'll have to. The mosaic's very pretty, but there's nothing we can do about that. The picture is temporarily lost. It's back again now. As you can see, a mere 27 kilometres left to ride. But what a brutish way to the finish. 3 riders clear. Linus Gerdeman has been tipped as a great bike rider of the future. Maybe today he's going to show it. He was the only T-Mobile rider in that leading break.
Well, the big question now is, will they have enough to survive? There's about 17 miles to go to the finish. There's a rider clawing his way across to them as well. And I'm just trying to see, it's the green and white jersey of Dimitri Fofanov. And Gerdemans has said, thank you very much. I've got the legs here this afternoon. At the moment that Fofanov made the junction, Gerdemans has actually launched an attack.
Well, I'm not sure what is the wiseness of that at the moment. Gerdemans, we know, isn't a bad climber. He had a great Tour de Suisse as a youngster. He's only 24 and a half right now. But in 2005, that's when we first saw him. He won the 7th day of the Tour de Suisse. He's a man of the hills. As we've cut back to the man who's entertained us for 8 days of the Tour de France. He's got 8 yellow jerseys, and that's the last one for Fabian Cancellara. We've been calling him Fabulous Cancellara, haven't we? But this is the breakaway.
And look at this. Fofanov is going for it now.
Another most unlikely rider here for Crédit Agricole. Gerdemans is not afraid of what lies in front of him at all. And De La Fuente and Gutierrez, so much to my amazement, don't like the change of pace.
Well, they started, and it's all to do with the gradient, and they will probably prefer the slightly steeper gradient once we get up to the summit. Just to go through the gradient of this climb, Phil, at the early part of the climb, it's only about 6 or 7% in gradient. Once we get up to the last part of the climb, after 8 kilometers, it then starts to kick up to become just that little bit more difficult, and the average over the last half of the climb is 8.5%, and that may well be turning into the favor of the Spanish riders. But Fofanoff on the front here has been a professional since 1998, and he's only ever really won 4 races, but he hasn't won a race since 2002.
And he's setting up for us now. There is Eric Zabel in the middle in the blue, who's pushing for the green jersey, riding within himself. We heard early on that Mark Cavendish was dropped, but we did speak to Brian Holm, his team manager, who said he got back and he was feeling a lot better. And so he's come to the foot of the mountain in the big pack. I don't think he'll stay there. He's very, very young, but he will get through the mountains. The banner won't be too far away for these two men now. Something of a surprise. Gerdeman, is he climbing to yellow in his first Tour de France? This could be amazing, because it doesn't look like a man is under any pressure at all here. Terrific climbing rhythm he has got. Just over 5 kilometers to go to the Col de Colombia. They are climbing this mountain so quickly at the moment.
But in fact they're just reaching the slightly steeper part, and they've turned to the smaller gears. This climb now, Phil, is starting to bite in dramatically.
We're just on the 5.5 kilometers from the top of the climb as Gerdeman has tried an acceleration. This is a slightly steeper section. What is wrong with this guy, Paul? He doesn't want to be with anybody on the Columbia.
Well, he was riding up alongside Fofanoff to see whether or not Fofanoff had the legs to stay with him, and that's why he was riding alongside him. He was trying to feel how the Kazakhstan rider was going, and all of a sudden he thought, this guy's not strong enough to stay with me anymore. I'm off. I'm going to take this race by storm. He's got inside of 20 kilometers to go, but he's still got himself a 4 minutes advantage over the front end of the main field. In fact, the peloton have dropped back to 5 minutes. You know, Gerdeman has been a professional, Phil, since 2005. He's only really won 2 races in his career, and he really is today showing off the talent that he's got, that everybody said he had, but his results so far have never really showed it.
Well, T-Mobile have had a lot of faith in this man. He's only 24. He won't be 25 till September. It's his first Tour de France. Yes, he's all he's ever done really is win a stage of the Tour de Suisse, but we've always known he's been a great talent, and he got into that breakaway this morning and nobody will have marked him. He's unknown virtually, and there's a terrific attack gone from the front of the peloton now.
Well, again, it's Team Barlow World out on the move. They've seen that there's a lot of control at the front end coming from Team Rabobank, and Barlow World have decided that as a wild card selection for the Tour de France, they want to show the organisation, thank you very much for bringing us here. This may well be Alexander Efemkin. He's the twin brother of another Efemkin who rides for Case d'Epargne, and he may well be today trying to show that he's the better of the 2 brothers.
Well done, the Barlow World. The wild card boys are making sure that the organisers are paid back for putting them in the Tour de France. I think it is Efemkin, but we'll wait till we find out for sure. It doesn't look like Felix Cardenas, the man perhaps we would have expected to have made the move. But he really has decided to bridge the gap here, and they haven't reacted at all.
Well, the Norwegian flag at the side there, they'll have to wait a little while before they see their hero, Thor Hushoff, because Thor Hushoff is in the group with all of the sprinters just a little bit further back. This is Michael Bogard, who's looking at retirement at the end of this year, but riding superbly for the team. Michael Rasmussen is there in 3rd position. Mick Rogers moving up to the front end of the main field, not too far away from him. But this is turning out to be a rather strange day on the first attempt at the mountains, and it looks as if David Miller now is about to call it a day too.
Well, that's sad. In front of him is Patrice Algon, himself a former leader of the King of the Mountains, as indeed David Miller is now. There's Algon as our motorbike picks through the debris at the back. That acceleration hurt an awful lot of riders there. The other rider going out is Jens Voigt, the hero of the team. who has done very, very well in keeping them in touch with the leaders, and it's hurt a lot of Team CSC. This is Kurt Attel Arvidsson also now, another workhorse. He's dropping off. This peloton is getting smaller, but none of the favourites are coming back. Inigo Cuesta, oldest man in the race for CSC. He too is about to unhitch at the back.
Well, that's an indication of the pressure now starting to bite in this group, and the pressure today is being dictated by the men of orange, the Dutchmen on the front end for Team Rabobank, who really are hammering out an infernal pace, and they're reducing the number of riders. I tell you one thing, that man at the front there, Michael Bogert, is doing a phenomenal job, and this is the damage, Phil, that is being done. Still in there as well on the right-hand side, thank you very much, is Andreas Kloden. So those two riders from Team Astana, Andreas Kloden and Alexander Vinokourov, were able to ride through their injuries yesterday, and they're riding themselves back into the Tour de France. Everybody wrote them off after that accident. Fofanov now has been joined by the two Spanish riders, Inigo Landaluz in the orange, David de la Fuente in the yellow, but the main field is having a serious sort out. Levi Leipheimer is still here. We know that Denny Menchov is still here. I caught a sign of George Hincapie a few moments ago, so I think he's still got a foot on the back step of the bus here this afternoon. But I'm amazed to see the riders from Astana have actually recovered from those serious injuries they had a couple of days ago.
Alberto Contador is also here along with Popovic for Team Discovery Channel, so they've made the decisive move. There is the king of the mountains, Sylvain Chavanel, but he is off the back here, and George is also now slipping away because this has been a detached group, so George isn't with the leaders now, as our cameras start to show us just who is left and who is up front in the Tour de France. Sinkovic is the T-Mobile rider there. This group is under pressure.
Well, they're seriously under pressure. Fourth rider in that group there is Cadel Evans, so his team have done a good job for him. He's still at the front end of the main field. Paolo Salvadelli is just going to disappear. He was in the early breakaway of 15 riders. He does not like the mountains of the Tour de France this afternoon.
Salvadelli now going through at the back of the group. He was in the breakaway. Let's have a look how many is he left in that group. About 25-30 riders up here as they continue to make their way up. This is the selection, the first big selection. Mercado is at the back of it. This will be the capture very shortly now. The man has been doing a lot of work here. Fofanov been passed by the first two chasers, couldn't hold on to them as they disappear up front. It looks like they've split as well. They have. Landaluz has dropped De La Fuente. Now there's another turn up for the Book.
Well, we're getting to the steeper part of the climb now. De La Fuente still that strange bouncing style that we got used to last year in the Tour de France. Bounces on the saddle, then gets out, dances on those pedals, tries to find a little bit of pressure to stay in contact with Inigo Landaluz, who, as you said, Phil, earlier, has never really been a massive winner, but all of his great success has been here really in the mountains of the Alps, because it was in the Dauphiné Libéré that he came to for a couple of seasons ago, and now he seems to be coming back to that form.
That's exactly right, but the man who is throwing down the gauntlet today and could be riding into a yellow jersey for T-Mobile in his first Tour de France is Linus Gerdemann, beginning to froth at the mouth now, and I'm not surprised. Let's hope he can hang on. Well, it's a man we would never have picked, but he's coming up a massive crowd, a channel of noise for Linus Gerdemann now. He is going to be the first man over the top of the Col de la Colombière, and if he descends big enough and fast enough, a yellow jersey awaits him in the Grand Bornand.
Well, it's a very tricky descent. He leads over the summit there. He's got about a 30-second advantage over Inigo Landaluz, and that looks a little bit scary. Gives you an idea of just what he's going to plunge down to. Landaluz now is looking to accelerate up to the top of the climb, and I tell you what, Phil, he is going to take all kinds of risks. We are looking now at 18 seconds for Inigo Landaluz. He will charge down this mountain, and he will take serious risks to try and get himself back into the race and think about a victory. There is Popovic on the far side. Right close up to us was Levi Leipheimer as well. We saw Carlos Sastre riding at the front end of the main field a few moments ago, so he is in there. I haven't seen Frank Schleck. There is Chris Horner, I think, riding at the back of the group too. Now, that is phenomenal ride by Chris Horner. Well, he is there to look after Cadel Evans.
He's a very, very good climber, Chris Horner, and this has been, for him, probably an okay climb, because there's nobody of the favoured riders been dropped as far as we can see. Possibly Frank Schleck, but he wasn't seen as the likely winner. It's always been on the shoulders of Sastre. but this is a huge push. Alberto Contador is in here for Discovery Channel. Leipheimer is, so too is Gusev, and this is an attack by Rasmussen for the points at the top of the King of the Mountains. He wants to get a few points in the bank now because he is the King of the Mountains for the last 2 years in the Tour de France. He really wants a podium finish this year though, and he might yet get it. Contador, tempo riding on the left of our picture there. Gusev on the back. No, this isn't Gusev here, this is Mercado who's sitting at the back of Nagreturbo.
Gusev was a little bit further up in front on the left-hand side of the main field, so he's comfortable in there. We're picking up another rider who is in the early breakaway, Fabian Wegmann. The man who's riding away here, the Michael Rasmussen, he really is becoming the new King of the Mountains in the Tour de France. He won't be in the leader's jersey at the end of today, but I think the way he's jumping out of the pack there, Phil, he probably will be tomorrow.
Cadel Evans, Carlos Sastre trying to hang on behind Alberto Contador there. This rider, every man he picks off, of course, he gets more points at the top of the climb. Double points today, as is the rule. If the category of the climb, the last climb of the day, is second, first, or all category, they double the points. So there's 30 for the winner. That's gone. Gerdemans has got that. Landaluz is second. De La Fuente is over in third. 12 kilometres to the finish now, as the riders in the Tour de France have really found out what this race is.
Martin Elmiger, who's in the leading breakaway, and if the car hadn't have been there, he may well have pulled himself back into the wheel there of Elmiger. But he's just ahead of nearly all of the major favourites of the Tour. We have had a decanting. We'll have a completely different overall classification. 3 minutes and 20 seconds is the deficit of the main field, and now, Phil, it is going to be a massive charge down to the line. They've got a 10-kilometre descent here, and it's a rip-roaring technical descent. I've just got my fingers crossed that everybody gets down safely.
Well, the seconds that counts. Gerdeman is on his way down. He's being chased by Landaluz, who's only just behind him. De La Fuente is back at a minute, and there's the rider at the front now, and he is the revelation of the day. Chavanel will keep his lead tonight in the King of the Mountains with his 42 points, but it's getting less and less. Looking at the ascent there, 46 minutes it took the rider Linus Gerdeman to climb the mountain today. Now he's going to fly. He's sensing the greatest moment of his career, and Landaluz is having a terrific job, but I don't know whether he can get back onto him.
Well, we're celebrating there. You just saw the fireworks at the side of the road, celebrating the passage of the Tour, and of course the 14th of July, French Bastille Day. Not much for the French to cheer about just yet, because it looks as if it's going to go to either the Germans or the Spaniards. Landaluz will take a lot of risks on this descent. It's a real technical descent. You can see this as we swing around the corner here. It gets a little bit easier once you go through the town of Chinaillon, but it's still a rapid charge down to the finish.
The long line now, you've got to stay alert. Those fingers will always be near the brake pads, but you'll try not to use them. You'll watch for anybody altering the line. You've got to rely a lot on the boy in front not making a mistake. At the moment, it's pretty routine and it's very quick. It's not like this all the way down the col, though. It gets tighter at the bottom as we'll go round sharp hairpin bends. From what we have seen of Linus Gerdeman's, Paul, he's relishing the race down to the Grand Bonan.
Well, he's got a big advantage. He's not got to worry at all about the main field. He's only really got to worry about one man, and the one man is just behind him, and that is Inigo Landaluz. We're getting time checks popping through that it's around about 24 seconds his advantage. On this part of the course, he won't lose very much at all. It's very straight. He's getting down into a very precarious, low-profile skiing-type aerodynamic position. I hope he doesn't hit a bump like that, because that would be rather sore. Yeah. It does get technical, though, once he goes through the town here of Chinaillon, and this is where he's starting to come into. And that's when we start to go into the zigzags, which will take him down into the valley floor.
8 kilometres, 8 minutes should see him to the finishing line with the help of the Colombier. He's pedaling the highest gear he's got on that bike now, those long legs here driving him towards the finish. He started the day 58 seconds behind. He gets a bonus on the line of 20, so he's only got to win by 39 seconds to be the leader, and that of course is over Cancellara, not the rest of the riders. He's heading for yellow.
He's charging down for the yellow jersey, even if he gets caught by Inigo Landaluz. Luz. He's almost certainly going to be the new leader of this bike race at the end of the afternoon. He's entering now into the outskirts of the upper ski resort of Jaen. He's extended his advantage to 28 seconds. The main field is still hovering at 3 minutes and 22. We're looking back to see where the orange jersey of the Basque rider is, and it's actually going backwards here. He seems to be an awful long way behind. That is a lot more than 30 seconds to midfield. There is the Basque rider.
Let me quickly tell you the leaders over the top. Gerdeman was followed by Luz, De La Fuente a minute back. Then came Lefebvre, Fofanoff, Elmager, all in the breakaway. Then it was Rasmussen from the peloton. So he went over in 7th place. So there's only 6 riders surviving from the breakaway. And I would think Elmager and Fofanoff have already been caught.
Quite short, they will be put in at the back end of the group of the favourites. 191 there is Alexander Vinokourov. He will be breathing out, Phil, I think today, a sigh of relief, because there are not very many riders left in this group of favourites, and Alexander Vinokourov is still there and still present. Every day that goes by now, that man is going to start to improve. Do not remove him from your list of favourites to win this.
Sensation today. He started the day, Paul, 58 seconds off yellow. He knows now the jersey awaits.
Well, that's what's waiting for him for the end of the day this afternoon, but he's going to have a very tough day tomorrow defending it, because we go back into the big mountains of the Alps. The straight road now, he gets down into that skiing position, keeping his pace as high as possible as Luz now goes under 4 kilometers to go.
So we are looking here at Luz here now, continuing down the mountain, but he's not going to get on time, I don't think. This rider has flown the coupe. He's the best placed overall, and he's going to head now into the leader's yellow jersey. Another tight turn using the full road. There is the team car, and I should imagine that Brian Home cannot believe what's happening now, because he better get the iron out for the yellow jersey tonight, and he's very tense. You can see now he just wants it all to be confirmed. Tight bend here in this lovely town. Round the hairpins, they've arranged this special plateau so we can approach the line without shooting straight through it and off the mountain. We're onto the flat roads now to circumnavigate the town of the Grand Bournon. There you can see him using all of the road. This has to be an incredible moment in the life of Linus Gerdeman here, Paul. He's going to be yellow now.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. This man now all of a sudden is not feeling any more pain of the day. He's starting to feel the elation of victory. He can find that little bit more. He can accept the pain more now, because he knows this pain is going to pay at the end of the day. He realizes that he's only got that final bend. I hope he looked at the race book last night to realize there's a very sharp left-hander. Then he will line up. Strangely enough, the last time the Tour came here in 2004, it was a German rider who was second on the stage, beaten by Lance Armstrong. That was Andreas Kloden. This time history has changed the books, because it's going to be a German rider who wins the stage and takes the yellow jersey.
And in theory it should have been Kloden. He started the day in 2nd place, 33 seconds off, but he's in that back group as far as we know, although we haven't seen him in that chase group of the big pack. Here comes the charge now. They're sweeping up virtually everyone, and it's all Case Depon, Valverde and Pereiro who are leading the charge into town. They're sweeping up. As far as I can work out, there's probably 4 riders from the break left in front.
And those 4 riders will be hoping they will survive to get some recompense for the work they've done. Here is the left-hand bend, the sweeper now, and he will start to slowly climb up towards the finish line. He should as well, Phil, get a 2-pronged attack here, because not only the win of the stage, the yellow jersey, but he'll also take over the lead in the white jersey competition as well. So what a day for this young man, and what a day really for T-Mobile, who've put this structure together, because at the end of the day, Bob Stapleton brought a very young team to the Tour de France this year, and they're starting to reap the benefits. Let's not forget, though, Mick Rogers is still the man for the overall win if they can keep it all together. 36 seconds over Luz. He can start to
100 meters to the line. I should imagine his team manager Brian Home can't believe this. He only had 1 man in the break of 15, and that man is coming home alone now. To the cheers of the crowd, the adrenaline will pump. We are in Italy. The riders start in France. They come to a brand new finish here at Prato Nervoso. It's a lovely day. There is a massive crowd.
Hard to believe after the days that we've had going along the flatlands in the bottom of France. And Cadel Evans at the back end of the main field, obviously looking to keep himself warmed up. He's going back to the team car, probably to take on a racing cape. Now, if the weather is going to be like this, Phil, it's going to be very cold over the summit of the climbs.
Well, we go up to 9,000 feet and it's going to be very cold up there today. The only thing I can tell the riders is that it's quite nice on the other side, on the Italian side. And it's a shame if the cloud stays low, because I'll promise you this has to be visually one of the most beautiful stages you'll probably ever see.
Absolutely. This is a little bit of an incident before the race has been started properly, and it seems to me as immediately before we started we're getting a wheel change there for Cadel Evans. He's obviously got a little bit of a problem with the back wheel, so he changes it. There's no panic at all because the flag, Phil, has not necessarily just been pulled in.
Sebastian Lang has dropped back amongst his team cars. He's queuing up to get back into the race, but he looks okay. He may have had a flat tyre. I guess he had a flat tyre, Paul, but he's getting back into the race again. Sebastian Lang.
Well, I'm not sure whether it was a flat tyre, Phil, because he was at the side of the road for quite a long time. I think he may well have been trying to adjust his machine as he makes his way through the peloton. For him, it's going to be a difficult day, I think, to defend his lead in the King of the Mountains jersey competition, because he's only got a 1-point advantage over his teammate Bernard Cole, who really seriously is a much better climber than him in the high front end of the main field. It's because Lampre now have decided enough is enough, and they've come to put the tempo up here to try and toughen up the race a fraction, because obviously Damiano Cunego is thinking about the possibility of a victory here in Cuneo and the climb up to Prato Nervoso.
Molines. This is the town on Keras, and for the bunch, remember, we've already seen the leaders go through here, and that's interesting now that Lampre have put out the orders to lift the tempo. They don't want this big peloton to get over the top quite clearly.
Well, it's interesting the way different teams can assist at different teams for the wrong reasons sometimes. Cadel Evans doesn't need to use his team this afternoon now, Phil, because he's allowed that breakaway to go off the front end of the main field, and another team has decided to do the pacemaking at the front end of the pack because they have a different interest. They're not trying to think about winning the Tour de France with their man Damiano Cunego, but they are thinking about trying to win the stage with him, because it would be with great pride that he could win the stage into Italy if he could, which is why he's setting the pacemaking with his team on the front end.
There's the open plains now of the Col Daniel, and as you rejoin us, we've just heard that the Australian Mark Renshaw has just abandoned the race, so that's 2 riders today have gone. Not starting was Mark Cavendish. So looking here at the peloton, now many of you who are just joining our coverage here on Versus, you're late, because we started early today, and will, by the way, on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, as we bring you exclusive full coverage of the stages in the Alps. So far it's been a quiet day, I have to say. We started in the rain, 4 riders got away pretty early on. Danny Pate of the USA is in there with 3 other riders. And we're currently on the 12-mile climb here of the outside category Col Daniel. Just looking here at the back of the race, this looks like it's a few people in the crowd wave. Looks like the Flago slope continue to climb up the tops of the col as we climb gradually out of this valley. Helicopter levels the hills. It doesn't look quite as hard as it is, but they're still pushing up. 13:39, Paul. So a bit surprised that they're actually still gaining as they climb.
Well, yes, especially when you see the fact that Team Lampre have come to the front and started setting a certain amount of tempo. We're on the slopes of only the first climb of the day, and we haven't yet even covered 60 kilometers of racing. It always looks easy when you're looking at it from on television. You think the guys at the front are just cruising along, but it's when you see the numbers of the riders who are starting to...
They climb out of this valley now, and you can see these 4 at least are keeping themselves together. There's the accordionist about to welcome these riders into Italy as we go over the top, and then that long valley below. Igor Martinez, Simon Gerrans, Jose Luis Arieta and Danny Pate. I caught a glimpse of his face there. He's just got to hang on. He's nearly in the last kilometre. And look at this, number 91 here, Steinewalder, the leader of Quick-Step. That is a big surprise. He was nurturing before the Tour de France. He's never looked like a dropped yet. Just in front of him, I think, is Robbie McEwen. That's what they're saying. But it looked like him. It is. That's McEwen there. He knows how to handle himself. He'll drop off. Look at the peloton racing away from these riders now. Still 78 miles long and a lonely day. Another sprinter cracked. Jimmy Casper here. To go on the board. They know now they've got to form what we call the autobus and get home safely together. 3 more riders just ahead, also in trouble. Looks like 2 from Bouygues Telecom, 1 from Française des Jeux. It just all of a sudden has got quite hard, the Col d'Angel, as they start the summit of the mountain and then dive down. There's the summit right up there. We must be with the leaders here. Yes, we are. So they can see the top now. So come on, Danny Pate, just grit your teeth a little while longer. Been a lot of work by a good climber here, faithful in Martinez. Col Agnel just coming up. Little glance to his right by Simon Gerrans. He can see the top of the climb. Just let's have a look at the face of Danny Pate next into our picture. He's hurting, but he's getting there, and it's only a little bit more suffering.
Well, then he doesn't have to worry too much, Phil, because once they've gone over the summit of the climb, there's a long descent off the top of the Col d'Agnel, because they go down from to 102 kilometers covered downhill to the feeding station. So that'll give a little bit of respite. There's the banner now indicating meter left to go to the for a sight
for the long descent. It is a long descent into the valley, and I think that's the reason that the main field honestly haven't turned a pedal in anger. Look at the time gap, 13 minutes. The nearest rider to the yellow minutes behind, so there's no threats here. They are waiting for showdown on the climb to Prato Nervoso, that's for sure.
Well, Danny Pate just sitting at the back of the group, taking on board his racing cape there. And as you can see over the last few moments, in fact, Danny Pate has not contributed. The rest of it has been pretty much even. The 3 riders in front of him. Now, that's not really a surprise to me, Phil, because as we said earlier down the climb, those 3 riders are good climbers in their own right, while Danny Pate, I think he's here really just trying to survive.
Well, this is ridden the Tour de France before. He's never seen the Alps in competition, and here he is about to go over the top of one of the highest climbs in the race this year. It stands at over 9,000 feet, and he's going up with the leaders. 18 minutes as well.
Well, as you say, Phil, not necessarily one of the highest roads in the Tour de France this year, but almost one of the highest roads in. This is the 3rd highest mountain pass in Europe. As you can see, fortunately, I think for Danny Pate, he's picking up a little bit of the tailwind, so he should survive and go over the summit of this climb with the rest of the guys. And even if he did get dislodged by 5 or 10 seconds on the long 40-kilometer descent, I'm absolutely certain he'd make his way back to make contact.
Poor Simon Gerrans is also having a problem here, pulling on his
but I think he's a correct well in 3rd, 4th and 5th place, but Tomica Boonen is right there. Still on his wheel is Robbie Hunter.
As we head under 2 kilometers to go to the finish, we're on a sort of dual carriageway just out of town here, but it gets a little bit tortuous. We duck and dive and go through a tunnel, believe it or not, before we line up for the finish. There's still time for confusion, and Julian Dean is right there, that white jersey with the black collars. This could be a great day for New Zealand if he can get it right. There's an attack on it with a tremendous change of speed, because they're heading for the tunnel.
Well, CSC have taken a look at that advantage. The acceleration now is putting a lot of riders under pressure. Robbie Hunter must not panic. He must stay there and wait and gamble on this all coming together. We've gone underneath the tunnel. Who's going to come out first? 3 riders with about a 10-length advantage over the front end of the main field, but very quickly it's all back together.
It was Cancellara who launched the attack there, which he was also 1 kilometer to go. Now this is a right-hander, then we've got another right-hander at 5 500, and they've gone far too wide, and there's been a crash down on the barriers, and we don't know who's taken out, but it's given Liquigas the lead.
Well, that was a sweeping bend over to the left-hand side. A number of riders have gone out, but it's Liquigas have got the organisation. Robbie Hunter's right in there, filling about 6th position.
Well, Freddie Rodriguez is a faller from what I can hear at that very bend as they continue to line up for the finish now, and this is a huge turnout, but this is not going to be a routine finish. Tom Bonan at the moment is not in the hunt for this.
Bonan was one of the riders who went down. I'm looking to see if I can see the green jersey there, but Robbie Hunter is in an ideal position. He's in around about 4th.
Hunter now dodging in amongst the wheels here as the sprint is opened here by Timo. That's 500 to go. Hunter springs wide here. The rider's just about holding the line. Bonan and Rodriguez down in the sprint. Robbie Hunter now is heading for his first ever victory in a stage of the Tour de France. Barlow World are having a dream tour. Can he hold on? This will be a special win. He's being challenged. He's got it on the line. Robbie Hunter scores for South Africa. The wildcard team have got a second stage win, but the sadness is that Bonan and Rodriguez down on that corner.
Well, they came around that corner in an unbelievable speed, and they were caught out, I think, by the severity, but what a brilliant sprint by Robbie Hunter. He was right at the front, and he was never very far away. This is the crash. We're having a look down who's on the ground here. A link over on the left-hand side, that's Freddie Rodriguez who's gone down. Julian Dean went down as well. There he is in the black and white, the Kiwi. Ventoso has gone down also, but this was the chaos inside, and this is Frank Schleck. He was also involved. He was at the front end of the group, and that's not really a place where he should have been.
Well, Marcel Seberg, the tallest man in the race, was down there as well. Freddie looks a little bit stunned. These are the riders coming in now. Let's hope that they're all okay. Julian Dean was right in the position there. They went too wide. Just take a look at that. They swept out far too wide. They clipped the barriers. Foot on the ground there for Tom Bonan, and he's brought to a stop, but I'm not sure Tom actually fell off.
Well, I'm not sure if he did go down, but one thing we know for absolute certainty, that the man in red and white of Team Barlow World, Robbie Hunter, lunges for the line. And is that man happy? I think so.
Well, wouldn't you be? Because Robbie Hunter has just got South Africa's first ever stage win in a Tour de France.
Let's have a look at that again. This is how we come around the corner here. You can see right up at the front end, we'll get a chance to see who made the mistake there. That's the final corner. Robbie Hunter has got a clear lead at this point. Pippo Pozzato is battling to get onto his wheel. Give Robbie Hunter a clear dash for the line, and excuse me, he's got his bikes all over the place. He really is like Jamaluddin Abdul-Jabbarov, but he's got the win, and that's straighter. Exactly what he wanted.
He's a little bit straighter when he sprints. Robbie Hunter there, what a great win. And here would be forgotten in the excitement of the sprint, but here comes the Christophe Moreau group. The clock is counting now. Already over 2 minutes has passed by. He is going to lose more than 3 minutes today, Christophe Moreau, Paul. In the end, the elastic snapped big time.
It certainly did. He had to keep battling all the way down towards the end, but I think he's a courageous rider at 36 years of age. He's a rider who's got an awful lot of talent. Still injured riders picking themselves up from that crash. A lot of riders in this group. This is a massive group that were caught out by the acceleration of Team Astana. Christophe Moreau will be looking at the clock, and it's already 2.5 minutes. It's probably, Phil, going to be 3 minutes on the line.
He's got quite a way to go, half a kilometre or so. The crash, unfortunately, dislodging two sprinters in perfect position, Julian Dean and Freddie Rodriguez. They just went, overshot the corner, swung wide, hit the barriers. That corner caught them out, and Hunter ended a perfect day for South Africa. It's not been a perfect day for this rider, though. Christophe Moreau will not believe his bad luck today. A moment's inattention, a silly fall with a teammate early on, and here is the result. Time losses. As he comes home on a day when he shouldn't have lost anything, he's going to cross the line 3 minutes and 20 seconds down.
That is a massive loss for a man who started the day in the top 10 in the overall classification, but actually, Phil, all of the other contenders were very much comfortably there. Valverde, Cadel Evans, Alberto Contador, Levi Leipheimer, they were all in the front group. Only Moreau missed out.
In Cancellara, Muriel Fischer was very close to Liquigas, just ahead of his teammate Pozzato. Alessandro Balan for Lampre getting into the top 5 there. Further down, Bossoni, the other sprinter on Lampay. Also Philippe Gilbert, despite being in the break, finished off with 8th place. Tim Kirken sprinting well, completing the top 10. Everybody given the same time, indeed, as will all of the fallers to date. And there is the top 15 for you, with Andrei Kashikin of Kazakhstan still riding well. These are all placed at small time gaps, so they must have split the field. But I think, Paul, at the end of the day, they will all come in at the same time.
There's a lot of riders, though, Phil, caught out because of the severity of the wind on today's stage. That was the main enemy of the riders this afternoon, because that howling Mistral that blew across the race split this race to complete and utter smithereens. 10 minutes lost for these guys, and still there are guys coming in.
Well, of course, all the riders that got split out won't get the same time, but everybody who fell in that last kilometre will get the same time, because that's the international rule. We've applied it already during the Tour de France this year, so I think all of the front runners in the end will be given the same time. But one happy man there, Robbie Hunter. He's never won a stage of the Tour before. He's won a couple of stages in the Vuelta España, and last year he was a tremendous rider for Floyd Landis. Say Valverde, no change here. Mayo is third, Evans is fourth, Contador fifth. All the time gaps are still the same, clothed in sixth. Leipheimer now moves up from 9th to 7th today. That's a big jump for him, although his time gap remains the same. Carlos Sastre is 8th, Kim Kirken up as well into 9th, and Astalosa completes the top 10. We're looking where he is, Paul, and there he is. He's dropped from 6th to 12th at 6 minutes 31.
Well, it just goes to indicate you can't bank on tactics in the Tour de France. As we look a little bit further down, Frank Schleck has also lost a bit of time. He's at 7:01. Denny Menchov, a pre-race rider, but Alexander Vinokourov is 19th.
Temperature is not so hot on the Tour de France today. The peloton are very hot indeed. The 94th edition of the Tour de France is turning out to be a great competition. This is Castres, this beautiful town in the far south of France, waiting now to welcome the Tour de France. These are the jerseys you can buy, and if you can't see any yellow ones here, well, let's find out why. There they are. The last two sold moments ago, as now Castres is ready to receive the Tour de France. Well, these are the big contenders. Behind the leader Rasmussen, Alejandro Valverde is in second place. Cadel Evans in the highest position for an Australian in fourth. Carlos Sastre very much there in sixth. Levi Leipheimer, like most, climbed one place yesterday because of the demise of Christophe Moreau. Vinokourov now up a little bit to 19th, although he's looking for 8 minutes and 5 seconds. Now, the man who is also in the yellow jersey is also in the polka dot jersey. Michael Rasmussen. Is he going to go for the King of the Mountains today, do you think?
It's going to be very difficult for Michael Rasmussen, because he has to bear in mind that with 98 points over 79 points, he will get challenged. I have a feeling he may not be the man for the yellow jersey, so if I was Rasmussen's team management, I'd ask him to keep chipping away at the Mountains classification anyway. Just in case. Well, let's remind ourselves how it scored. Today there are 3 fourth category climbs, and they come at the kilometre 27, 58, 74. You get in these climbs, you get 3, 2 and 1 points. There's a 1 category 2 climb, Paul, and because it's the last category 2 climb of the day, the points are doubled: 20, 18, 16, 14, 12 and 10. Well, let's take you back. First of all, early today, a chat at the car here by the yellow jersey, and I think Michael Rasmussen probably thanking Christian Prudhomme there for supporting him in the problems he seems to now have with the Danish Cycling Federation. The Depart Real, after a long ride, Paul, today of around 11 kilometres neutralised. The riders underway. They get to climb number 1, which came 151 kilometres, so about 27 kilometres in. Philippe Gilbert ahead of David Miller, and Staff Shearlinks was the order over the top. Well, those were the riders aggressive yesterday, but it didn't stop the aggression, because coming up to the second climb of the day, another breakaway was going clear. In the orange jersey, it was Chiruka of Team Euskaltel-Euskadi and Federigo getting second place, the former champion of France from last year and a former stage winner. 47 seconds ahead of the peloton there, but by the time they got to the next one, which is where we are at the moment, 74 kilometres into the race, Chiruka again ahead of Federigo, and the peloton haven't arrived there yet, because the last gap we had over 6 minutes was now the lead of these two riders. I think the main feel fairly happy. If we look at the weather conditions, a little bit cooler as well for the riders, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a possibility of rain in the latter part of the afternoon, and the wind is a westerly wind at 14 miles per hour, and that, I think, will really be very much of a headwind on the running down towards the finish. The main field saw a lot of attacks in the first few kilometres of the race field, but now that they've got just a two-man breakaway, I think they're taking a fraction of a back seat, and they're going to allow this race to develop. But I'm sure they will speed it up once we get to the second category climb.
I'm sure you're right. 189 started the Tour. There were 168 at the start today. We're down to 167. 7 of the teams are still intact. The man who's given up today, Ongarato, he crashed. He got back into the peloton, dropped back to the doctor. The next thing we knew, he was getting in the ambulance. So I don't quite know what his injuries are, but he abandoned the race. These are the leaders, and we're just on 100 kilometres from the finish. Once these two finally got away after some exciting riding in the opening hour of the race, the peloton suddenly shut down. Within seconds, they had 3 minutes, and now the last time check we've got, they are approaching 7.
I think the reason for that is that they're quite happy to have a small breakaway going clear. You can see, in fact, that breakaway group is extending to about the 8-minute mark now. On the frontier, we've got a chance to see the riders across the main field, but we'll get a chance to look at some heart rates this afternoon. Sergio Paolino, Gorka Verdugo, Christian Knies, Ralf Grabsch and Marcus Berghardt, who we've seen on a number of occasions. In fact, he took off the front end of the main field before, just to show us that he has got a very good pair of wheels.
And in fact, he's still there, around 5 minutes behind. I don't quite know what Marcus is doing today, because he's got himself 2.5 minutes ahead of the pack, but he's still 5.5 minutes behind the two leaders. There's the peloton on the way to the beautiful Tarn department of the start of the climb, I think. And Fedrigo is the man pushing it, 6 minutes 3 the gap. Now, it'll be interesting to see about this young rider at the back here, Chiruka. He's the lightest man in the race, as I said, and he must have lost a little bit since we started from London 13 days ago, Paul. We're on the climb itself, the Monte de la Jonte, 10 kilometres to go.
Well, I'm not sure that the gravity of the climb, the steepness of the climb, will advantage the small rider from Euskaltel-Euskadi, but there's the banner, and it indicates 10 kilometres to go, so they've been rather kind on this occasion. They've shaved off the half a kilometre. Well,
no, I don't agree. I think they've been climbing for a kilometre already. They just put the sign further up the mountain.
Exactly. That's true. Well, this young man, he is a very good climber. Federico, on the other hand, is an experienced professional rider. He's got a lot of strength in those legs of his, and he will be looking to stay in contact here. But what's more important is the time that these riders are losing. The official time gap on the blackboard there is 6:05, but Race Radio is telling us that it's 5 minutes and 50 seconds. There's always a delay between the board there that indicates the time to the rider and what Race Radio gives us. Race Radio is more likely to be exact.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Well, these two riders are hitting this hard, and the crowd has chosen this climb to turn out in quite large numbers and shout them all on. The flag of Denmark off to the right, supporting Michael Rasmussen. And here comes the big pack. They're on a little slope here, but they're still about, well, what would it be, 3.5 kilometres or maybe slightly more behind those two front runners.
Marcus Berghardt now at the front of the main field and still looking fairly comfortable. A little bit of discussion going on there. Sorry about the little bit of picture breakup. That's the live signal going from the motorbikes up to the helicopter and down to the finish line. A lot of riders in this group now, Phil, will be rather worried about the fact that they know there's going to be a showdown on the slopes of this second category climb, and will they be able to stay in contact? Chris Horner is not far away. He's looking after his man Cadel Evans, who, let's not forget, is only 6 seconds off second place in the overall classification. There he is over on the right-hand side.
It's good to see that. Cadel Evans, I really feel, believes in himself this year, and he can win this Tour de France. He won't make any silly mistakes if they do split on this climb, because tomorrow, like a lot of the favoured riders, he can ride a time trial, and that's where they can reshuffle the pack. Object today, don't make any mistakes.
Well, these are the two leaders, and you can see the gap is coming down consistently for the two leaders, 5.5 minutes. But just to finish off your thought there on Cadel Evans, Cadel Evans is a very good individual time trialist, and although he's 6 seconds off Alejandro Valverde, I think more importantly, Phil, he's 1 minute and 9 seconds ahead of Andreas Kloden, and they rode almost the same time in the first time trial in the Tour.
Being done here, the bowed shoulders of Chiruka, because they're riding into this block headwind, which has only hit us in the last 6 or 7 kilometres, coming right off the top of the ridge of this mountain. There is no real descent. There's the flag of South Africa. They should have been flying it yesterday when Robbie Hunter won the stage. They probably were. And the Rabobank bus on the left there and over the summit, and quite rightly Fedrigo didn't challenge Chiruka. He'll move up to 11th probably overall in the mountains competition tonight. Now I'd like to say it's all downhill, but it isn't.
The riders there looking after Levi Leipheimer. On the front was Paulinho, not too far away from him was Jaroslav Popovic, and just trying to stay in contact Philippe Gilbert, and just in front of him another man involved in the accident yesterday, 47, that's Freddy Rodriguez.
Well, Fred might be hurting. His elbows are bandaged, I can see, from that crash yesterday when he was in a perfect position to win. He was very upset by that, blamed the organisation for not giving them a safe run into the finish. Indeed. Well, Gilbert with him. He's tired from an early breakaway today when he won the first climb, and is now the work now being shared by Lampre at the moment. Is Française de Share, these riders with two top sprinters, and this is also helping the other teams who've also got sprinters, but they haven't sent anybody into the fore for the chase.
Well, watch out for Vinokourov.
He's there
because he's riding in about 10th to 12th position, and in a couple of kilometers time, Phil. At the moment we're riding along a plateau which is up and down, slightly undulating, not that difficult, but in about a couple of kilometers time we'll start what is a fairly precarious descent, and I will think then that Alexander Vinokourov, if he's feeling okay, he may well have a little dig there and see if he can create a little bit more action in the back end of the main field.
Well, they are throwing everything into the chase here, and it could be a catch right in the home straight. These boys are defying the peloton, and it is a terrific race into Castres. 4 kilometers to go. The gap at 5 was 32 seconds. It might be now 25 seconds. We'll know in a minute or so. They will begin to think they might just get in by the skin of their racing shorts.
Well, they will not give up until they can feel the main field behind them. There's no organisation now. This is not a very good chase. It's turning over towards the advantage of the two leaders, and at a point like this, when you follow two men out at the front end of the race, you want them to survive. It's 22 seconds now, Phil, at 4 kilometers to go. That really is not very much, but the two men at the front will not give up. They'll keep fighting. Tom Boonen now looking calm and collected, pushing his radio button there to talk to the team manager. What do they look like at the front? Are we going to catch them? But he's still got to stay there and wait until the last moment.
If they continue to gain at the current rate, they will catch them 250 yards before the finishing line, and I can't believe that they can't win now if they really do. Look at the face of this little man here, Ahmed Chiruka, the lightest man in the race. He weighs 56 kilograms, and he's a climber, and he's desperate, and he's at 3 kilometers.
3 kilometers to go, and I tell you one thing, if they look over their shoulder now, Phil, in these long straight roads, their main field will be right behind them, but they can't give up. They've got to believe right until the moment that they get caught that they will survive. The main field there is waiting to pounce, and under that banner there, it's just 13 seconds.
They're saying 15, let's give them 15 as they go under that banner now. 15, that was 10 seconds off in that kilometre. As they now come relentlessly, these are the boys in blue, the men of the rider in green, Tom Boonen, trying to lead him to the line. This is going to be a desperate finish because these two riders are confusing the teams of the sprinters now. They should have been caught by now. They should be thinking of the sprint win. Instead, they're still having to chase two riders.
Well, that's the traffic island there at just around about 2.3 kilometres to go. That would slow down the main field. A couple of guys have gone the wrong way. Sorry, mate, I think you're going to lose a few places in the line when it lines up again. But there is the red car behind the two leaders. That's the car of the race referee. It's being pulled forward. It's an open road now for these two men. This big black mass behind them charging down, that's no longer 10 seconds. The blue mass on the front is Team Quickstep, and they are now looking at these riders. It is so close indeed. That's less than 10 seconds.
Well, it might just be 10 seconds, but they're closing fast now. Fedrigo has looked over his shoulder. He knows the catch will come probably when he looks up ahead and sees the red kite in the road, signifying 1 kilometre to go. Caught 1 kilometre from the finish. They've been in the lead since the 5th The second kilometre, the sprinters of Tom Boner still drive on. They still live in hope, these two. Certainly the little Spanish boy does.
I just noticed Julian Dean moving up to the front there, and right on his jersey was a green and white mass, and that was big Thor Hushoff. Thor Hushoff may well now have got himself back into this race. Boonen is up there into fourth. On his shoulder there is Julian Dean. These riders are only just getting caught, Phil, over on the left-hand side, but Liquigas now are trying to pull Pipo Pozzato up to the front.
Well, I think they've been caught at about 800 metres from the line here as the field has taken over. Pozzato's boys at 1 kilometre was the catch. At 1 kilometre to go, the domestics swing off now and look in the hope that the big sprinters will take it up. And Tom Bonen has got a perfect shot at this in third.
Well, his team now are lining it up. This is the train, the blue train of Tom Bonen. The man in second position is Herk Stegmans, the winner of the stage, into Ghent, and he's going to try and launch Bonen into the attack. Locked on his wheel is Eric Zabel, locked onto Zabel's wheel is Robbie Hunter, and locked a little bit further back is Daniele Benatti. Look at the pain, the anger, the fear of these men as Stegmans opens it up for Bonen.
Well, as they start now, the man in white who grits his teeth as the champion in New Zealand, that is Julian Dean now. This is the final lead out for Tom Bonen as Stegmans comes, and there's a kick on the far right. Bonen goes now, Sebastian Chabanel on the far, and now Zabel has got the wheel of Bonen, and Hunter's still there. Hunter dodging with Zabel. Zabel might get the better here of Bonen. Bonen gets it, Zabel Hunter. What a result, and the sprinters are back.
Well, the sprinters never expected they were going to get their day here this afternoon. Hunter is showing us that he's a great race now for the green jersey competition, but what about the old man in second place there, Eric Zabel, getting himself some points? Look at this. This is a royal sprint here. You can see the great lead out by Herk Stegmans. Right on the wheel of Bonen there is Eric Zabel, waiting till the last possible moment. Julian Dean running out a little bit of pressure, but look at the great comeback by Hunter in the red and white there. He will not give up, this man. But Bonen, when he gets a crack at the line like this, when he's launched to perfection, he's just like Mario Cipollini or Alessandro Petacchi. What a win for him.
Well, Tom Bonen gets what is in history his 6th Tour de France win and his 2nd. He won in Bourg-en-Bresse, and this is a huge result because he got no points yesterday. He gets his 35 points back today by winning the stage. Hunter and Zabel are pretty close. I think Zabel got it, but that will go to the photo for sure, as we're a bit obscured there by the man who won the stage. But those, ironically, those are the top 3 in the green jersey competition.
Well, I think we'll have to have a photo from the other side here to separate Eric Zabel and Robbie Hunter. But look at Bonen. He really